Rusty Starlands. Book 1. The Tree and the Kindling. Prologue. Under the Canopy. Section 3. The Sky-crowned Tree. The Demeter Sky-crowned Canopy lay closest to Mars's southern pole among the 12 supreme capitals, near the remnants of Arceumans, far from the equator. The region was bitterly cold, but its abundant subsurface ice made it an ideal cradle for the growth of the sky-crowned trees. A single tree could do little to change its surroundings. Only where 3 or more trees overlapped, where their canopies merged into what settlers called a shared shade, could a stable microclimate take hold. Beneath this layered protection, daytime surface temperatures could be sustained at around 10 degrees Celsius. Demeter's canopy far exceeded that threshold. Nearly 100 mature trees rose across the region, with more than a dozen juvenile ones growing rapidly among them. Somewhere within this living lattice lay the target, the A52 spinal matrix. Their destination sat along the southern edge of the canopy city, the furthest limit of human activity. Beyond it stretched the endless frozen desert of Mars. To reach it quickly, Tao and Lynn boarded an unusual Martian vehicle, the Platinum Skiff. It was Tao's own invention, a low-altitude airship. Hydrogen injected into sealed hollow chambers provided lift, while a working fluid engine drove it forward, allowing the craft to fly swiftly through Mars's thin atmosphere. Compared with traditional electric rovers, the Platinum Skiff was several times faster, though it carried far less payload. It was designed for speed, not hauling. Tao had absolute faith in the design. He had even released the patent publicly, hoping it would reshape transportation on Mars. Criticism followed almost immediately.
Isn't this just a low-flying cruise missile packed with rocket engines and explosive gas?
Some technocrats sneered.
Anyone who comes up with something like this is either insane or a terrorist.
Mockery and doubt poured in like a storm. Tao merely smiled and continued piloting the single prototype across the Martian surface, proving its safety with every flight. Lynn had always felt that Tao's devotion to Mars mirrored his stubborn belief in the Platinum Skiff. Even alone, he would prove that something deserved trust. Tao's gaze remained fixed on the skiff's silver radiation-resistant coating. Its smooth surface was like a still lake, reflecting the shifting outlines of the Martian wasteland appearing and vanishing as light and shadow crossed it. His fingers tapped lightly against his wrist, a reflex so ingrained that even through layers of composite insulation, he seemed to feel the cold metal beneath. There. He wore a tungsten cobalt atomic watch that had once belonged to his brother, Lynn/Karin. The watch, along with the Karin family crest engraved on its face a hammer and flame, symbol of mastery over both technology and will, had passed to Tao after his brother's disappearance. That unconscious tap acted like a silent command. Each time his fingers touched the metal, his mind surged awake, emergency protocols branching and recombining at speed. Every detail was dissected, calculated, and aligned, like gears within a complex machine locking into place, waiting for the critical trigger. At the same time, Lynn was fully focused on speed and control. She adjusted the control yoke with ease, using a raised ridge of terrain to hurl the Platinum Skiff upward. The craft leapt like an arrow released from a bow, skimming past the crown of a sky-crowned tree. Thousands of Duskleaf crystals were thrown into chaos by the sudden airflow, pelting the hull with sharp, ringing impacts, like hail striking a metal roof. She immediately dropped altitude again. The skiff plunged low, nearly grazing the ground as its searchlights cut through swirling dust, revealing the brutal metal jungle at the tree's base. Hundreds of silicon carbide pipelines burst from the surface like the fangs of some frozen beast. They pierced deep into fractured bedrock, channeling reactor heat underground to melt ice and pump liquid water back to the surface. Heat dissipation fins along the pipes opened and closed in steady rhythm. Each release sent jets of supercritical steam roaring out, freezing instantly into glittering icicles, only to melt seconds later into black rain when the next wave of heat surged through. Lynn never slowed. She threaded the skiff smoothly through the tangled root zone. Every 20 meters, the 3-meter-wide pipes swelled into tumor-like nodes, micro-fission reactor chambers. The pride of House Karen. Through thick observation windows, Tao caught glimpses of blue Cherenkov radiation dancing through liquid sodium coolants, like blue-ringed octopuses drifting in the deep sea. Beautiful, fluid, and lethally precise. When the skiff finally cleared the root network, it shuddered briefly, then curved around the tree's main trunk. The searchlight swept across an exposed early structure, a roughly 50 square meter core, like a rusted steel spine laid bare to the storms of time. Layers of fibrous bark had grown over it, but beneath those growth rings, traces of the earliest construction still remained. The new trunk's surface was pitted and uneven, like a coral reef, each cavity sheltering microscopic nests formed by magnetotactic bacteria after mineralization. Tao knew what he was seeing. This was House Silvaris's most secret achievement, genetically engineered bio-nanomechanical microbial colonies, working at an imperceptible pace. They consumed, reshaped, and layered matter until a primitive golden bough transformed into a true tree. Every sky-ground tree, every greenhouse canopy humanity relied upon, had been built by these invisible craftsmen, grain by grain, patiently devouring time itself to forge hope on a dead world. Lynn pushed her goggles up slightly, her voice drifting from professional calm for the first time.
Prepare to pass through the cloud layer. This is the part I know best.
Tao sighed.
You really should watch fewer old Earth films. The Platinum Skiff isn't a Podracer.
Wasn't Tatooine based on somewhere on Mars?
Lynn asked casually while adjusting their heading.
Tatooine was based on Death Valley in California.
Tao replied.
Though I'd rather this place eventually become Yosemite.
The horizon swallowed his gaze. Lynn fell quiet, then shrugged, her tone playful.
So which do you think will happen first, dense forests on Mars, or Jedi swinging lightsabers?
The question lingered on the comm channel for less than a second. Tao shook his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. He knew he would never live to see Mars turn green. Met was a project measured in millennia. They were planters, not harvesters. Perhaps those elites who claimed the privilege of immortality could afford to wait until Mars became blue again. Tao had never trusted such technologies. Some dreamed of becoming gods. He believed something simpler. Mortals remained mortal, even with 1,000 years of life. The weight of the thought faded as both of them looked up. Above them, milky fog surged like a rising tide. Deep permafrost ice, melted over millions of years, had been boiled through thermonuclear systems and driven upward through vascular channels inside the trees, finally venting as vapor from countless nozzles at the canopy's edge. The vapor carried countless tiny twilight seeds, drifting in invisible currents like silver dust stirred into milk. In Mars's thin air, they assembled themselves into delicate hexagonal films known as Duskleaf. Duskleaf was the key medium of the artificial greenhouse. It converted precious solar photons drawn from 200 million kilometers away into heat that fed the land. And when the films eventually fractured and decayed into finer dust, they became the skeleton of clouds binding moisture, returning at last as cleansing snow and rain. When the first blade of dawn pierced the clouds, the sky seemed to ignite. This was the moment when twilight seeds transformed into Duskleaf. Only 20 millimeters wide, each crystalline membrane used plasmonic resonance to trap heat within tiny umbrella-like protrusions. Light flowed and refracted across the gossamer hexagons, dazzling and unreal. Tao narrowed his eyes, watching the Duskleaf descend. Suspended, as if by invisible threads, the crystal sheets drifted toward the red surface at a steady rate of 17 centimeters per minute. Then he frowned. Some of the films shimmered with a strange, intrusive iridescence. The unnatural color rippled through his thoughts like a stone dropped into still water. He knew it wasn't natural. It was information embedded in microscopic structure. A signature of House Silverus.
What are you really trying to do?
He murmured.
Are you trying to become this new world's?
The word died on his tongue. As the skiff passed between two intersecting tree roots, the cabin temperature spiked. Tao slightly adjusted the ventilation valve on his protective suit, feeling sweat trace his collarbone and disappear into the metal biointerface at his chest. This overlapping canopy formed a natural greenhouse. Dual layers of Duskleaf raised surface temperatures to 15 degrees Celsius. Through the viewport, Tao saw genetically modified moss pushing through cracked permafrost, glowing faint green as it drank in artificial sunlight. At the junction of the tree shadows, a circular oasis nearly 300 meters wide spread quietly across the sand. Enhanced lichens multiplied wildly under composite radiation fields, their mycelial networks twisting across the ground like dark red arteries, reminiscent of coronary samples from anatomy class. The skiff suddenly shuddered. Lynn jerked the controls, narrowly avoiding a drifting Duskleaf cloud. Saturated crystals condensed into snow rain, falling onto frozen ground and erupting into pillars of pale steam. When A-52 appeared on the horizon, Tao had already shifted into full operational focus. 3 young trees, each only 1,200 meters tall, stood in silence, though small compared with mature giants. More than 2,000 micro-fission reactors roared beneath their intertwined roots. Neutron flux, suppressed by 100 meters of rock, pulsed as a constant low-frequency tremor, as though the planet itself were resonating. Lynn cut the engines. In the sudden quiet, Tao heard the rhythmic thunder inside the tree, high-pressure steam racing through trunk conduits like blood surging through a giant's veins. For an instant, he felt as if he were floating inside the vast heart of human civilization itself. Its cold miracles nothing more than faint muscular twitches. The sky-crowned tree existed on the blurred boundary between biology and machine. Even for House Karen, it was a dangerous miracle, but nuclear maintenance and tuning that was Tao's domain. House Karen had always excelled at finding discordant notes within chaos and fixing them. Cleaning up after powerful people had become their grim, unspoken motto.
We're here,
Lynn said, setting the skiff down near the roots of one tree. She deployed a rock-piercing anchor to stabilize the craft. They shouldered their gear and climbed a simple pulley ladder to a maintenance hatch 20 meters above ground. The hatch was corroded and scarred, metal etched with rust like dried blood. No markings should have been there yet. As Tao's eyes traced the stains, a blurred whisper surfaced in his mind. My blood, my bone, my flesh, my will, all become ripples. His chest tightened. The rust was random, meaningless. It could not form words. And yet the phrase lingered, as if a sealed signal buried deep in his subconscious had been triggered.
what is it?
Lynn urged.
Nothing.
Tao looked away and reached for the valve.
Ready.
Lynn asked from behind him, her mechanical fingers already on the emergency release. Tao nodded. Lynn pulled the lever. The hatch screamed open with a shrill metallic scrape. A wave of heat surged out, carrying steam, rust, and something he couldn't name decayed, yet stubbornly alive. It was the scent of something deep within the steel forest, beating slowly, inexorably,